Sir, at this time?
Yes. Okay, Preksha, we are starting in 5. Huh?
Namaste and greetings. I, Preksha Jalan, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav Evam Niti Anusandhan Sansthan, Nai Delhi, extend my warmest welcome to you all to IMPRI Web Policy Learning. Today, we are gathered here for the day 4 of the EPAYF Environment Policy and Action Youth Fellowship. We welcome you all to this immersive journey into impactful environmental policy and action. The chair for today's program is Ms. Bhargavi S. Rao ji, independent researcher and educator, environment activist, Bangalore, and also visiting senior fellow honorary at IMPRI. We welcome you, ma'am. Our expert panel for the program today includes Tripta Behra, Professor Anil K. Gupta ji, and Mr. Himanshu Shekhar ji. The conveners for this course are Dr. Mansi Bal Bhargava ji, Ms. Suhasini Iyer ji, Professor Utpal Kumar Dev ji, Dr. Sibi Mehta ji, and Dr. Arjun Kumar ji. Proceeding further, we welcome everyone to this transformative journey and appreciate your dedication in investing your time, energy, and commitment to gaining a profound understanding of the crucial role and intricate details of environmental policy and action. We have also shared course online outline and reading resources in your email for your kind pursuer. Before we start today's session, I would like to state the housekeeping announcements. Please join the meeting on time. There will be Q&A session after each presentation. Please share your questions on the Q&A box. The questions must not be posted as an anonymous attendee, and ensure that your questions are precise, and please refrain from making general comments in questions to save your time. To begin today's session, I would like to invite our chair, Ms. Bhargavi S. Rao ji, independent researcher and educator, and also visiting senior fellow at IMPRI, to give her opening remarks. We welcome you, ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you, Preksha. Good afternoon, everybody. Today we are here for a special session to commemorate the World Environment Day. We are reminded of the critical role each and every one of us play in safeguarding the planet for future generations. The theme for this year's World Environment Day is land restoration, desertification, and drought resilience. It underscores the urgent need to heal and revive our ecosystems, for they form the very foundations of all the life and livelihood on this earth. As youth, I think you all hold immense power to effect positive change. I'm truly impressed with the range of topics each of you have chosen for your research, and reading the abstracts was really, truly a pleasure, I can say, because you all have thought through it so meticulously, and you've been able to articulate it really well. The planet truly needs clear thinking, loud voices, and actions that will be impactful with an unwavering commitment. And I'm sure this program will help you all achieve that goal. In a world where the consequences of climate change are becoming increasingly apparent, we cannot afford to remain complacent. It is time to harness creativity, think of innovative solutions, and determination, definitely, to implement truly sustainable solutions, and not those which are tokenistic and just lip service kind of solutions. So understanding what restoration means in the diverse agroecological landscape of the country is something very important. Every small region needs a very careful analysis of the restoration processes that will be possible, based, of course, on the traditional knowledge then we have enough scientific evidence today. And also, it is key to ensure local community participation. So, a one size fits all approach will definitely land us in trouble, as we have heard from the few lectures over the last 3 weeks. So whether it is efforts to rewild and restore lands, or clean up water bodies, or advocate for renewable energy, or even championing for wildlife conservation, a well thought out plan is the key for ensuring truly long lasting restoration. And also an interdisciplinary approach, as you all have already probably been thinking of, is what will hold the answer. And these efforts must also ensure that no one is left behind. We cannot afford to make the same mistakes we've made in the past. So it is imperative to hold governments and corporations accountable for their environmental policies and practices. And there is also now a greater demand for greater investment in stricter regulation is what we need. So a lot more investment should go towards that, particularly on land diversions, the kind of land diversions that are taking place, the kind of pollution that is taking place. And we also need to look at stricter measures to protect the last remaining biodiversity. So as we stand here on the precipice of a very pivotal moment in history, it is important to seize this opportunity, I can say, to be, true architects of a brighter, more sustainable future. And I'm sure this fellowship will help you all achieve that. So wishing everyone a very thought-provoking and action-oriented World Environment Day. Thank you so much. And I'm eagerly looking forward to our speakers' sessions today. Over to you, Preksha. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So to begin today's day and today's sessions, I would like to invite Ms. Tripta Behra, researcher at IMPRI, for her address on World Environment Day, Decades and Highlights. Tripta, over to you.
Thank you so much, Preksha, for that very kind introduction. And thank you so much, Bhargavi, ma'am, for that very informative initial session of our today. Firstly, a very happy World Environment Day to one and all present here. It is great that the Environment Policy in Action Youth Fellowship participants get to interact on an auspicious day such as today. So before I give some background about the various themes over the last 5 decades, I'd like to give some context on how this day came into being. Before that, Preksha, could we have the presentation? Yeah. Thank you.
Could you tell me if it's visible?
Sorry?
Is it visible?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. So the World Environment Day, it was established in 1972 by the United Nations at the Stockholm Conference on the Human Environment that had resulted from discussions on the integration of human interactions and the environment. And 1 year later, in 1973, the first World Environment Day was held with the theme Only One Earth. So initially, the focus was on looking at environmental issues from a unified global perspective, that repercussions of environmental impact are not just limited to a nation's boundaries, they go beyond borders. And since then, there has been a new theme each year that we focus on. The basic idea has revolved around how development can take place without destruction. The World Environment Day has given people all over the world a platform for raising awareness on environmental issues such as marine pollution, overpopulation, global warming, sustainable development, and so on. So starting with the 1970s, the focus was primarily on international integration, only one Earth. With passing years, themes revolved around human settlements, water as a vital resource for life, ozone layer depletion, and soil degradation. The last few years of the 70s and the beginning of the 80s focused on development without destruction. The subsequent themes, can you move on to the next slide? Starting with the 80s, revolved around groundwater in 1981. This campaign drew attention to toxic chemicals in groundwater and food chains. There was a reassessment in 1982 after almost 10 years of the meeting at Stockholm for the renewal of environmental concerns. Further, the themes included managing and disposing hazardous waste, acid rain, and growing desertification. In 1985, we see that there was an emphasis given to the inclusion of youth into dialogue and discussion for climate action, which was not there earlier. And we can see that the impact of this has been great today because we have youth participation, immense youth participation in environmental dialogues today. In 1981, a year after the establishment of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, celebrations hosted in Brussels, Belgium, echoed a mounting concern about global warming. So this decade was essentially about global warming coming to the fore and it being a global issue and people starting to talk about it even more. Moving on to the 90s. Can you move on to the next? Yeah, thank you. The 90s saw a focus again on global partnerships with themes such as One Earth, One Family, Only One Earth, Care and Share, and Our Earth, Our Habitat, Our Home. So the 90s was essentially about global integration again and talking about how problems are not limited to and isolated to a single country, but environmental problems move across borders and impact everyone across the globe. Moving on to the 2000s saw an integration of technology into environmental assessment. So with technology coming into the fore and assessment being done even more, in 2001, the UN Secretary General Kofi Annan chose World Environment Day to launch the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment, an unprecedented effort to map the health of the planet. There was also an emphasis on the availability of water and saving seas and oceans because they are detrimental to life on Earth. 2007 saw the theme Melting Ice, a hot topic, which marked the first of the 3 consecutive years in which the World Environmental Day, drew attention to climate change essentially. It came just as the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's assessment report stated that the warming of the climate was unequivocal. It was imperative to understand at this point that global warming was indeed happening and it wasn't a theory and a hypothesis, but a true reality. And 2007 was the year of focus. 2008 focused on reducing our carbon footprints. Moving on to the 2010s, 2011 saw forests as nature at your service. The emphasis was on forests. In 2012, the emphasis was on greening the economy. So there was emphasis on integration of the economy with the ecosystem and environment. Till now, what we saw was that capitalism and profiteering efficiency was the main motive, but now integrating the economy and making it more sustainable was the main focus with time in the 2010s. 2013 saw reducing your carbon footprint as the theme of the year. 2014 again saw sea level rises and the topic of sea levels and saving the seas and oceans and water bodies of the world became the topic and the theme of the discussion. 2015 again saw One Planet Consume with Care as the theme, which was essentially about global partnership. 2016 was an interesting year because it gave emphasis to illegal wildlife trade and how that should be stopped and how that impacts the entire ecosystem altogether. 2018 was also an interesting year because beating plastic pollution came to the fore. It was a topic that was not taken up earlier, and the 45th celebration of the World Environment Day was under this theme, the Beat Plastic Pollution. Over 6,000 people gathered at Versova Beach in Mumbai because this was the World Environment Day was held in India. So people gathered at Versova Beach in Mumbai to join the UN Environment Champion of the Earth, Afroz Shah, in a beach cleanup. Subsequently, in 2019, air pollution was taken up as the theme of air pollution, a global emergency that was declared, the repercussions of which we see even today in Delhi, the rising air pollutions, and year after year, months of November, December being an issue for people at large, was brought up in the 2019 World Environment Day as well. 2020 was again a time for nature. This was after the COVID-19 crisis. It was realized that it was important to give more focus on our environment and how saving the environment has repercussions on our lives as well. In 2021, the World Environment Day was held in Pakistan, the ecosystem restoration. The focus was on ecosystem restoration, celebrated under the theme Reimagine, Recreate, and Restore. In 2022, we moved back to the idea of only one Earth, which was the theme of the first World Environment Day. And 2023 again saw solutions to plastic pollution. So over the last couple of years, the focus has essentially been on beating plastic pollution, beating air pollution, and on global partnerships across the world. And now coming back to present day, as Bhargavi ma'am mentioned, 2024's theme is land restoration, desertification, and drought resilience this year. And we look forward to the discussions today to discuss all the themes and how we can actually make our world a better place through environmental sustainability and protecting our environment. So thank you for that, Preksha. I would give the platform back to you. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you for that address, Tripta. Thank you so much. I would like to invite Bhargavi ma'am for any remarks that she might have.
Oh, that was a great way to start the day. I think walking us through all the years and the different themes, it kind of shows the areas that have been covered by the various World Environment Day themes, and it also reflects on the kind of actions we may have done at the national level and at the state level, and of course at the global level. And over the last 3 years, the areas going back to plastic pollution just highlights how big the problem is. I think it was fantastic, and Tripta did a great job of walking us through the years, giving us a little bit of history. It'll be good to have your presentation shared with all the participants, because they can always go back to it, and based on the themes that they are working on, they could also refer to the particular year on which that particular area of their research may have got attention as a World Environment Day theme. That was excellent, Tripta. You could also probably turn it into a very nice article, what you just shared, your presentation can be turned into a great article. Please do. So thank you so much.
That's nice. Thank you so much, ma'am, for this.
Thank you so much. Moving on to our next session, I am honored to invite Professor Anil K. Gupta ji Professor and Head at ECDRM, HOD Director of Projects and Center of Excellence and International Cooperation, National Institute of Disaster Management, NIDM, New Delhi. On the occasion of World Environment Day, Professor will be guiding us through the topic of disaster resilience. We welcome you, sir. The floor is all yours.
Emerges in any of the.
Yes.
Is it full screen?
Yes, sir, it is. It is.
Please.
Uh, yes. So basically, when we talk about the environment and sustainability in the present time, the key focus that emerges in any of the discourse that is related with the climate and the climate change. But the focus of my team has been more on the climate change related loss and damage, and looking from the resilience and adaptation perspectives. The important things are that now there's very less kind of any doubts or any kind of confronts whether climate change is reality or not. But when it comes to loss and damage, there are several layers of understanding and several layers of facts that emerge when we try to interrogate into. And those are many times related with not only the intensity and frequency of the hazards, but also the vulnerabilities of the systems. So starting from the COP26, and then major focus was in COP27, and COP28 was also on reiterating that these solid actions are needed on addressing loss and damage. Then on the parallel, the issues related with the green development that in little technical or strategic terms we call as green growth strategies, and resource efficiency. So we also call it as maybe circular economy, but resource efficiency goes even broader than the circular economy. So there are certain things which you cannot really recycle, but how do you optimally utilize it? That those components are also there. So I think that's very important issue that is emerging. Now globally also there's also a significant discussion today. Also I had a very important meeting on improving financial mechanisms. Financial mechanisms, more particularly in both South and like the countries in transition economy or the underdeveloped or developing countries. There are the undulating terrain when we talk about the financial mechanisms. So those are also very important thing when we talk about the achieving various goals of sustainable development, but also in those goals in context of the priorities under Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction, as well as the Paris climate agreement. Also very important that policies talk about these kind of financial mechanisms, but implementation at ground level faces the competency gaps. So people do not have the capacities to understand, analyze, develop projects, implement, and if implementations are done, whether the impacts are significant or not. So it's kind of a evaluation monitoring this. Researches and resources both are there, but those are not well organized. So the lessons from the various kind of researches, various kind of knowledge that is being generated are not being synchronized. So that is another kind of challenge. One thing I would like to highlight here that many times we have seen that when something goes wrong, for example, there is a city, part of the city or the whole city got flooded, maybe triggered by a heavy rainfall condition or the failure of a water management system or whatever. And we many times our administrators and managers, they intend to put all the blame on climate change. We need to be very clear and very cautious that climate change, while is one of the major triggering factor, major contributor to increasing risk, but the incident that takes place causing loss and damage, there are many other factors which are responsible, which are the non-climatic actors. So climatic actors coupled with the non-climatic actors, for example, the issues related with landscape changes, issues related with land use, the designs, and many the maintenance, solid waste, and many other things. How do we maintain our buffers like the wetlands and other ecosystems? So there are several other dimensions that contribute to various layers of vulnerability, and those are very important dimensions when we really try to assess that the climate change is precipitating new are the additions to disaster risk. So this is a schematic that I tried to bring that how the anthropogenic and environmental changes are associating with the impact of climate change to precipitating disasters. This is a reality. We all know that if we compare the geophysical disasters and other disasters with the climate change related disasters. So when I say climate change related disasters, means disasters, meteorological disasters, hydrological disasters, so water related, climate related, weather related disasters. So those are if we see that in the trend, they are growing much as compared to other kind of disasters. So water and climate related disasters have grown much higher rate. So that is a key concern, and otherwise also globally and in South Asia as well as and also in India. If we look at the number of disasters, we find that around 70%, sometimes 75% are the disasters are associated with water and climate. So that is very important. But if we look at the geographical profile, I think that's very important and very interesting thing that India, very diverse geography. And along with that, the climatic conditions, geophysical conditions, many even the cultural and social dimensions also change, vary a lot. So how the disaster profile has been changing. Many times people think that, okay, disaster profile is same, and if one district or one state has been drought prone, so it remains drought prone. While it is not correct, because the climatic changes have brought the lot of changes in the trends and patterns, along with the implications of anthropogenic changes and land use and these kind of other changes. So with our German partners, some of the institutions, we carried out a study. We did a mapping of 25 years, the morbidity, mortality, and other kind of occurrences, certainly, across all the states and UTs of India. And then we try to understand that how the trend goes on. I think this kind of things are now more important, and now we are thinking that this should be done at the district level even. The second study that I would like to put into reference is when we claim that over past 2.5 decades or so, our early warning system has improved a lot, and not only early warning system, more particularly for cyclones and these kind of disasters, but not only early warning system, but also our preparedness. We very rapidly we establish coordination, the resource mobilization, so on and so forth, to deal with any kind of impending disasters, more particularly the examples are quoted from cyclone. But when we look at the recent past cyclonic disasters also, we find that there has been certain deaths and damages. So basically what goes wrong or what went wrong, despite of the best precautions, despite of near accurate the landfall predictions, many such kind of interventions which help us claim that we have improved, and yes, we have improved. So we instituted a study jointly with some of the civil society partners on identifying the root causes of disaster losses and damages. So these two studies I would like to put into reference here. But on the other side, as Dr. Vaidya was also talking about the risk reduction, adaptation versus mitigation. So very interestingly, within the domains of sustainable development goal, when we identify the aspects which are directly related with achieving the goals set under the Paris Climate Agreement. So energy comes at, I would say that, a critical dimension and at the center. So India has taken up regulatory measures also, but not only regulatory measures, we have taken a lot of technocratic measures and lot of good initiatives are there. There is a dedicated mission under the National Action Plan on Climate Change on these dimensions. The initiatives on improving energy efficiency through financing platforms, through the energy efficient economic development, through market-based, promoting market-based transformational tools, and various other means we are trying to improve. Just a moment, I think something went wrong. Yes. So India's journey basically on this dimension that if we talk about these two dimensions, that mitigating greenhouse gas emissions are mitigating the occurrence of climate change, are the new contributions to the process of climate change, energy, the sustainable energy systems, promoting sustainable energy plays very significant role. But at the same time, when we realize that climate change has already taken place and now we are witnessing the impact of climate change, and that is very interesting because now the word global warming is obsolete, and the climate change refers to basically bringing significant changes in the occurrences, patterns, and trends of various climatic phenomena or extreme climatic events. So that's very important, and that brings disaster risk management also in focus of the climatic discourse. And as I told that starting from 2000, say the COP26, basically this loss and damage has emerged as major dimension. So now it becomes, I would say that three major pillars. One is that how do we reduce greenhouse gas emissions and the curb down new additions to the climate change phenomenon. Second thing is that how do we adapt to the changes which are already taking place, and the impact of those changes are leading to devastating consequences in terms of disaster risks or loss and damage events. And the third thing is that how do we look at the ensuring the resource supplies and effective resource management. So looking at the circular economy. So basically, so managing what has already gone wrong, what events we are facing now, and how do we look at the future. But beside this, there are certain, I would say that, critical dimensions that emerge which are not necessarily related with climate change, but in some or other way associated with the implications of climate change as well. There are so many such cases where we witness this kind of scenarios near water, large congregations. So these are also associated with many times the migrations. These are also associated with the risk of basically some kind of the health related challenges and the basically the disease pattern. So This I brought, wanted to bring into reference that we prepared for India two very strategic planned documents. One was National Crisis Management Plan for Sudden Contamination of Water Bodies. And second was National Health Adaptation Plan. So the two plans which are prepared, one for the Ministry of Environment and Forests, other for the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Basically, the contamination, diseases, I think those are the things which are seldom discussed in the context of climate change, but past few years and more particularly post-corona discourse, these kind of things are also being put into reference. Today, in fact, the arsenic-related issues were also being discussed. Then there were questions that how this is associated with climate change. So basically, when it is excess water, when it is flooding, so it helps taking the arsenic that is available in a stream to other streams and then throw floods to the longer distances. So there are several new dimensions which are emerging, and those are also important to be brought into reference. I would also bring in reference the COVID situation, and we have seen this kind of a scenario, more particularly during lockdown, people trying to go back to their own native places. So that was a kind of a reverse migration. But we all know that that was not permanent. So reverse migration to great extent was temporary. But the question is not that. Question is that we never did any kind of a systemic understanding that this has direct climate connection and direct the connections with the loss of ecological productivity and loss of ecosystem services, affecting their livelihood, affecting their the health resources, so on and so forth. So I think that's very important because myself was I was in charge of the implementing lockdown in some part of Gujarat, and there that included Surat also, and we had more than 1.3 million migrant laborers, migrant workers there. And when we noticed that the people are mostly from the climatic disaster related locations, like some parts of Bihar, some part of Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Orissa, these places. So I think these are the newer dimensions, and these are not newer dimensions, but these are very important things which we seldom considered in the central thought process of the climate discourse for quite a long time. Another dimension that emerged from our own understanding, own experience, that in the understanding of climate change adaptation and addressing loss and damage related with climate change, most discourses are like someone talking about the resilience against floods, or adaptation of agriculture system to drought, or the mangrove population, mangrove plantation that can help protect our the coastal the areas to storm surges. But say single hazard approach has a lot of limitations. And why this is important to ponder upon, because COVID itself has given us an understanding. I refer to my positioning in the state of Gujarat. It was the period of April and May, and it was a high heat period. So it was a heat wave period. It was also the drought period, and very important to refer to that during COVID, we faced 5 cyclones, 5 major cyclones. Out of those, 2 were super cyclones. We also faced chemical accident. One, for example, the LG polymer incident, the oil fire in Assam, some accident in Chhattisgarh. So disasters or loss and damage events many times do not come in isolation. They at the same time there are the cascading challenges or the systemic implications, but at the same time 2 disasters are there. So I would refer to that period when we were talking about the keeping social distancing, but during cyclone we had to evacuate people and keep at the cyclone shelter. So it was a challenge that how do we prevent the spread of COVID when we are evacuating and putting large number of people in the cyclone shelters. So this is already referred. This is about that how a critical scenarios are developing when in the impact of climate change. This is just 1 week of the scenario in India, certain states. If we see that the same week, at some places, for example, Rajasthan, you see that the rainfall status 220% excess. But in the same this thing in Maharashtra, 80% deficit. And some places it is 93, Jharkhand 93% deficit. So the excess is going even same period to 220%, and that too in the Rajasthan. So basically that is the kind of challenge we are going to face. And very interestingly, the analytical understanding tells us that India, Bangladesh, and some other part of the South Asia combined, that is going to be the real flood hotspot of the world, basically, by mid of this century. So that is basically a kind of alarming scenario. In India, we are talking about the Vision 2047, and that will be the year we will be completing our 100 years of India's independence. And we are planning that by that time we will also be a developed nation, economically resilient and economically stable nation. But these loss events and loss scenarios make us feel worried that how are we really foreseeing these, how are we really perceiving these, and how do we really address these futuristic risks so that our dream of being a developed nation, our dream of being a sustainable economy is realized. Again, there are literal aspects of lessons that many times there are good researches available, but are these researches being put into use in improving our planning process or the governance process at local level? So this is a big question, more particularly in the countries where we have less systemic this thing to go deep into the kind of a research findings and integrate with the improving planning process. This is a publication covering Bengaluru and Chennai, the urban flood scenarios, published in the year 2011, and 2015 Chennai was flooded. In fact, 2015 it was flooded, but 2016 and 17 those were the drought years for Chennai. So a huge water scarcity in Chennai. So basically, water becomes at the center for risk and also for building resilience in many of the cities. So issues related with water governance, issues related with land use, like in the picture you see indicating the loss of wetlands or loss of water bodies. I think that is a significant dimension in both the cities, Chennai, even which is also the city of temple tanks. Now, a lot of rejuvenation and the restoration work is going on. So what is important here that mostly when we used to talk about sustainability, the sustainable development goals, now we have hardly less than 6 years or 5 years for the 2030. That is the period by which we thought that we will achieve sustainable development goals. But why? What are the real impediments? What are the real obstacles? So basically, obstacles are that when we talk about environment, when we used to discuss, primarily we thought that developmental activities or ill-planned developmental activities have deleterious impact on environment. But we seldom realize that environmental components or environmental systems are also risk drivers many times. So basically, environment as a source of risk. It may be a little controversial, but I referred that, and basically that motivates us to understand our surrounding environment and the environment that can have direct and indirect implications, impact on us more and better, so that we can analyze risk in more anticipatory way. Not only that risk that is prevailing, that is existing now, but by any kind of emergent changes or futuristic changes in environment, what are the new risks that we are going to face. But on the other side, environment also offers great solutions to the impact of the climate change. For adaptation and also to reducing the risk of disasters. So developing disaster resilience, or we call it disaster risk reduction. So over past 15 years or so, the new dimension that we called ECO-DRR, ecosystem approach to disaster risk reduction. Just to share with you that, in fact, this term ECO-DRR, I'm happy that I had proposed this word in the UN conference, and everyone agreed. And now ECO-DRR is a known word, and many people frequently they use it. But technical version of the ECO-DRR, we often call it NBS, or nature-based solutions. India, which is having large area under forest, large area under various ecosystems, we have much significant understanding of the role of ecosystems, our role of nature-based solutions. But have we really been able to utilize the potentials of nature-based solutions in increasing the resilience, or in solving our disaster problems, or in promoting climate change adaptation? There are certain questions. And I would say that there are good examples, but also there are failure examples. Those exist. So basically, how do we really look at mainstreaming nature-based solutions into our planning process at all the levels, more particularly the levels where we are mandating for development of disaster risk reduction plans or disaster management plans. Recently, we developed a manual for integrating wetland-based nature-based solutions into district-level disaster management plan jointly with our partners, including the Wetland International South Asia and others. Then how do we really take modern knowledge to the local level and integrate both the traditional wisdom, the people's insights and experiences with the external knowledge? So that's very important. And for this, basically, this is a picture from the Kosi Basin program jointly with the ICIMOD in the transboundary areas, the India side and basically Nepal side. So these are also very important thing, because in areas which are climate related disaster affected, the ecosystem based interventions can really be work well, be more socially acceptable, economically viable, and also have certain the co-benefits many times, so that the people really appreciate this kind of interventions. But for promoting this, for the approach, we used the term called shared learning. So basically, we did not go as an expert, but we joined communities, joined hands with communities for the purpose of learning together. So learning by doing together, basically analyzing together, planning together. So basically that was the purpose. So we tried to just work as a catalyst, bringing the knowledge and expertise from outside, but also giving due respect and weightage to the understanding of the people who are working there. But on the other hand, there are large projects which are also coming. For example, the large airports are coming, international airports are coming. This year, we have seen the kind of damages to our road networks and highways, 2022-23. More particularly, if we take example of the state of Himachal Pradesh, But not only this, several other parts also in the state of Bihar, in the state of Uttarakhand, in the state of even Maharashtra also. So there was damage scenarios. So how do we look at the existing tools, existing the instruments, policy instruments which are available? So like one is the EIA, and there is a set mechanism for EIA. Notifications are there, EIA notification by Ministry of Environment, Forest, and globally there is a version of EIA that we call it strategic assessment. So basically that is the EIA of policies. So can we really use it? So we have been discussing with the relevant counterparts for evolving a new mechanism called disaster impact assessment, and as an integration to the EIA process. So we do not only assess the anticipatory understand, or we do not only assess the futuristic environmental impacts, but also how major projects are going to bring the change in the disaster risk landscape. So, for example, if a big airport is coming, so it is also causing large-scale landscape changes. And when large-scale landscape changes are there, then hydrological regime will change. So the flood regime, drought regime, heat wave regime will also change. So basically, these are the kind of understanding we try to work. Then many times when we talk about infrastructure and bringing infrastructure into discourse is important because it was India's initiative, leadership initiative. And then now we have a global mechanism called Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, CDRI. And CDRI works, it has several countries as members, several global organizations as members. But indeed, it was India's initiative, Prime Minister's initiative. So what's important here that infrastructure does not mean that only physical infrastructure, only hard infrastructure. Even there are infrastructure which are also having the natural infrastructure as major components. So water infrastructure, for example, reservoirs, dams, and many times the natural infrastructures like the ponds or like rivers, these are also the infrastructure. So how do we really start looking at various different kind of infrastructures and also interconnectedness? So many times, so like the water infrastructure is related with sustainability in the electricity generation, more particularly the hydroelectricity. But electricity, then various other things are depending on electricity, the heating or the industrial sector or the railways or even health sector. So I think there are a lot of interconnectedness between the sectors. And when we talk about addressing loss and damage, these are the new and very critical aspects which are emerging within the city, outside the city, and even the larger scale, regional and national as well. This is an example that how do we bring the new knowledge, new understanding, and the need that we realize that the climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction should go hand in hand. But how does it happen? So if we take districts as unit, so how do we understand a district and how the district works? So basically, district has several departments, and each departments are headed by their own officials. But there are certain department. If we look at the geographical profile, disaster risk profile, climatic profile of that district, we'll find that there are certain districts which are certain departments which are highly critical from the point of the impact of climate change. So what did we do? We worked with those district departments for understanding that what are the changes their departmental plan needs for promoting adaptation and disaster risk reduction together. And based on that, how do we come up with a newer version or the newer modules of the climate sensitive disaster risk reduction planning at the district level? So that was done. The study was done first time for the Gorakhpur district in Uttar Pradesh, and then the second study was done for the Puri in Orissa. That is a pilgrim area and coastal area as well, so multi-hazard coastal, and also Almora district in Uttarakhand. So multi-hazard, hilly. So basically, and then based on those lessons, we came up with this kind of module. So how do we identify the key departments? Basically, this is a picture that shows that how we identify the critically important departments. Then also, Dr. Baidya was talking about cities, and he was also referring to floods. He was also referring to cities being imperative and urbanization also being imperative, that we cannot stop, we should not stop. So how do we look at the resilience in cities? So this is also a picture that how did we promoted the thought process about the resilience of cities to the impact of climate change and the risk of disasters. So starting from the neighborhood and then looking at the ward as unit and then going to the city level. So basically, the focus was on bringing convergence between the top down and bottom up approach. This is something that I was talking about, the shared learning process and two wheels. So first wheel is about understanding vulnerability, and the right side wheel is so based on our understanding of vulnerability, building resilience. So building resilience, it needs to understand three major dimensions. One is the systems, agents, and institutions. So institutions like the Disaster Management Authority, the Emergency Operations Center, Climate Change Cell, these kind of things, or the municipal corporation. But systems like the water management systems, or the health systems, or the waste management systems, and agents, basically the experts, the officials who can really work to bring the change. So that's very important. And so it's a complete process basically to bring knowledge into implementation. And this is about that how we think about bringing convergence from top down and bottom up. Also, there has been recently over past 10 years or 15 years a great paradigm shift in our understanding when we talk about addressing climate change through adaptation, through disaster risk reduction, through environmental improvement. I say environmental improvement because now we know that it was year 2021. The Supreme Court of India has asked all the districts to come up with environmental action plan. In fact, that is a great opportunity that we think of synergies between various plans at the district level. So district is mandated to prepare a disaster management plan. Now district has to come up with a environmental action plan. Now the districts are also preparing their health adaptation plan. So how do we look at the co-benefits and synergies between all these planning processes? This picture particularly, based on the research that we did in the Bundelkhand area, which is a chronically drought-prone, 13 districts we studied, covering Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh. So what's important that the focus for quite a long time has been more on the natural resources, agriculture, these kind of things. But what we found that to bring real ground change, we need to invest in both the capitals, natural resource capital, but also equally on the social capital. So that's very important, that how do we look at the livelihood things, how do we look at the especially vulnerable population, how do we look at the various other social dimensions, the access, the women, I think these are also very important thing. And then looking at that, how do we diversify so that the dependence on one resource is reduced. So that's very important lesson I wanted to share. The complete report is available on NIDM's website also. Then the other dimensions are also emerging. For example, India has also taken another leadership initiative to address the sustainable energy needs of sustainable energy and to address climate change, that is promoting solar energy. International Solar Alliance, that was another initiative of India. When we took a look at India's picture, so the part of India which has the highest solar potential, interestingly and as a chance, is also an area which is prone to high winds, which is also prone many times, most of the areas, to earthquake. So it is earthquake zone 3 or earthquake zone 4, some part. It is also the coastal areas. So realizing the fact that the photovoltaic cell that we use in solar systems also carry highly hazardous materials. So how do we ensure the sustainability and safety of these things when the landscape where these solar potential are high has the vulnerability to various kind of natural hazards? As on date, in India, we do not have a clear policy or mechanism to address the photovoltaic cells waste or solar panels and other things. So basically, these are also the new critical dimensions that are emerging, that on one hand, when we are promoting cleaner energy or the cleaner energy opportunities, there are also issues with other hazards we have to address at the same time. So I'm just flagging certain issues where we need to invest in research, we need to invest in improving our policy process. We have been talking about cities. We have also started talking about villages. We talk about integrating climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction into cities. We talk that integrating disaster risk reduction into Gram Panchayat development plans or the village plans. But we seldom have any kind of regulatory or planning mechanisms to address the areas in transition. We did some research, we did some case studies jointly with some of the partners. In some studies, NIUA was also a part. That this area that we call it the area in transition, peri-urban area, sometimes we call it urban fringes, or various different nomenclature, but which are very important from the ecosystem services point of view, but also the vulnerable people, many times it is the vulnerable population, poor people, they inhabit those areas. So what is their vulnerability? What is the vulnerability of the ecosystems in those areas? What is the vulnerability of the various other infrastructure systems in those areas? How do we look at this peri-urban system? So that is emerging as one of the important thing. I would also like to touch upon that many times we talk that climate change precipitates into disasters and disaster cause a lot of damage. But it's very important that many times when the disasters are there, so relief and response operations often make us compromise with the environmental concerns. Many times disaster response leads to damage to ecosystems. Disaster response lead to damage to creation of huge heaps of wastes. I think these kind of things are also there. So recently with some of the partners, we did some policy research and came up with a new module called Climate Proofing Disaster Relief and Recovery. So that is the first ever anywhere such kind of a module that we have prepared, that how do we ensure that that we are not contributing more in our activities of disaster relief and response, but relief is green relief, eco-friendly relief, and sustainable relief. And this first publication that also is worth referring, green growth and resource efficiency in disaster risk reduction. Then in the center, it is nature-based solutions for disaster risk reduction, reducing disaster risk. So these kind of manuals also we have prepared. Then there are certain policy papers which are available on in IDM's website. At the center, it is the district collector handbook, a very pocket handbook basically for the district collector. It is in Oriya. The picture is in Oriya, the version in Oriya, but it is available in English and Hindi also. And then also looking at that how the different sections of society are differently vulnerable. For example, poor people are vulnerable differently. And within that, the poor children are vulnerable differently. Urban poor children are vulnerable even more. And within them, the girl child, they are vulnerable and very, very differently. So how do we look at the differential vulnerability in our discourse and efforts to develop the improved planning process? This is a compendium of case studies on nature-based solutions on the left that has been published from Springer. On the right, a recent publication that has come recently, I think 10 days back, the climate change and disaster risk management. Basically, it brings good case studies from India, all the efforts covering all kind of disasters associated with climate change in India, so published by Springer only. So I think the initiatives in India are multifarious. We have the sustainability initiatives. Dr. Vaidya was referring to Life, Mission Life, they launched by Prime Minister jointly with global partners. We also had significant policy actions. I would refer to the 2022 first ever we contributed national adaptation communication to UNFCCC. That is the first time. So that also helps us understand that the co-benefits between various interventions required under SDGs, Paris Climate Agreement, DRR, and other global goals, for example, the UN Convention on Combating Desertification. This is also the decade for eco-restoration. So I think there are a lot of overlap, lot of synergies, and lot of co-benefits possible. But there are huge challenges. Challenges are that we have a lot of interventions at policy level. But how do we really translate these policy interventions and bring technical knowledge along in bringing ground change? How our planning improves, how our capacities at local level improves. I think that is a question that still remains to be addressed. This is something that we envisage and we foresee that we are going to address the climate change issues by 2070. We target that we will be a carbon neutral nation, but talking is easy, doing is not that easy. And this requires very, very detailed analysis, detailed understanding, detailed planning across all the critical sectors. Some of the sectors are front running, but some of the sectors are still, we can consider there are a lot of dirty business between those two sectors, and a lot of improvements have to be brought into that. So this is about the SDGs, and we already discussed that the opportunities of integration with the overlap has to be seen. This is the Prime Minister's 10-point agenda. The Prime Minister has given 10-point agenda on disaster risk management, but interestingly, it also brings the opportunities to address climate change and to improve sustainability as well. So that is a very important this thing, and the vision that the Prime Minister has given to all the central government and state government organizations. I'll be skipping a few slides. This is the recent initiative we have launched jointly with Ministry of Road Transport and Highways. We are studying 2,000 kilometers of national highway, most vulnerable national highway, most vulnerable to the climatic extreme and loss events, to see that how the various stretches, various highly vulnerable stretches, we can bring adaptation and resilience to the disasters and climate change. So this is first ever such kind of study that we have instituted jointly with some of the partners from IITs and other institutions in the country with Ministry of Road Transport and Highways. A lot of knowledge is there within the country also, outside the country also, in the domain of sustainability, in the domain of climate resilience and disaster risk reduction. But we find that we come across that kind of publication or information quite late, and when it's actually needed, we do not have an access. So we are proposing a strategic initiative, a network that is called as ADRESS, Adaptation, Resilience and Sustainability Network, that is going to be housed at ICARS. ICARS is Integrated Center for Adaptation, Disaster Resilience and Sustainability. That is located in the IIT Roorkee's Noida campus. So basically, this is going to have several verticals, and that will starting, for example, nature-based solutions, then the policy tools like EIAs and other things. So I think this platform will be very, very useful. Soon it will be operational, maybe next 3 months' time. So with this, I think once again I compliment IMPRI for this wonderful initiative, and thank you very much. In case there are some questions, I would be happy to answer those.
Thank you, sir, for that very comprehensive session. I would request all participants, if they have any questions, to please put it in the Q&A box or please raise your hand. So there is one question. Should I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Yes, so this question comes from Anvesha Maharana, who says that, as you mentioned, vulnerability assessment seems to be critical and a necessity before jumping to action plans. In the SAPCC HHS, the vulnerability assessment is not achieved well. What could be the challenges for the states for this?
First of all, I will tell that there are two type of vulnerability assessments. For SAPCC, the vulnerability assessment has been done from climate risk point of view. Whereas the disaster management plan, the vulnerability assessment is more comprehensive, where the climate extremes as well as the other disasters have also been considered. Again, coming back to SAPCC, the challenge is primarily the downscaling of climate projections. So for example, there are large states, and we have climatic projections. We have developed a scenario for Uttar Pradesh that how the temperature will rise, or the extreme heat days will rise, or the cold days will rise, or the extreme rainfall days will rise. Now, the projection for Uttar Pradesh would not suffice in the decision making of the Gorakhpur region, or the Agra region, or the Jaunpur region. Basically, we need to go down. We need a climate projection at least at the district level. And when we go at the district level, so there are certain level of errors. Basically, this is one kind of challenge. Second thing, there are a lot of aberrations that are also taking place. The climate projections, they are based on the modeling process that we are taking the AR6 or AR5 scenarios, IPCC given scenarios. But climate projections at local level, there are local the non-climatic factors that also play a role. For example, if it is a hilly terrain, or there are forests, for example, Lakhimpur Kheri, so there is forest. So that evapotranspiration system will also play. So how to factor in local contributors, and how to factor in these kind of things that bring local influences to climate projections, I think that is important. So now, in fact, there are some good initiatives in the recent past 4-5 years. Some districts have come up with the climate projections at district level. That is something good. But then the climate projections are quite complex kind of things. These climate projections are not understandable by the district level officers. So how to make it simpler? So this is one kind of challenge. Second thing, then which are the parameters you should take? Again, if it is coastal area, the parameters will be little different. If it is a hill area, the parameters will be little different. If it is the desert area, dryland area, the parameters will be little different. So these are the kind of challenges that we have, because India is highly diverse. It is not only one kind of terrain. The smaller countries, you have all the country almost similar. Here you move 50 kilometer, 100 kilometer, you have a different thing. So one model doesn't fit all. So these are certain kind of challenges with the HRVCA.
Thank you for that answer, sir. So in the meantime, while we're still getting questions, I would also invite you to just stress on the importance of World Environment Day, and if you want to add something else.
So first of all, my heartfelt greetings to all IMPRI and all the participants, all the family. It is a matter of both. I would say something to celebrate, because people celebrate World Environment Day, but something to worry about. And today morning I was thinking, because I also recall that people used to say that for India, this 5th June is not the correct day to celebrate Environment Day. It's a very high heat days. But I was thinking a different way today, that yes, 5th June is very appropriate this year at least, so that people realize how important is the environment. When the scorching sun is on the heat, people realize how important is the water, how important is the tree, how important is the shadow of the tree, how important are the animals, how important is the forest. And when we are in trouble, we talk about environment. When we are not trouble, we just forget. So it is like the concept of God, na. So there is a दोहा भी है ना क्या, दुख में सुमिरन सब करे, सुख में करे ना कोय, जो सुख में सुमिरन करे तो दुख काहे को होए. So I will talk about environment also, कि जब गर्मी है तो सुमिरन सब करे, पेड़ों को और पानी को, और जब जब गर्मी नहीं है तो कोई पेड़ों और पानी को कोई सुमिरन ना करे. तो जब गर्मी ना हो तब भी अगर सुमिरन करे, पेड़ों का और पानी का, उनका ख्याल करे, तो गर्मी शायद इतनी कम से कम होए. तो ये बात है कि थ्रू आउट द ईयर बेसिकली वी हैव टू थिंक सीरियसली दैट हाउ डू वी implement our policies. Policies are very good, but ground implementation there are challenges. Second thing, environment day में जो हमारी thought process होती है, primarily we are talking of two things. One, we are talking about pollution. Second, we are talking about plants. Other sapling, पेड़ लगाइए. Yes, I think very important that everyone should plant it, the sapling, but he should care also. But second thing जो मैं बात करना चाहता हूँ, that is that environment, there are so many things, और जो coming aspect आ रहा है अभी, one is that how do we understand ecosystem based services, and how do we, hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So एक तो है कि how do we really recognize the value of ecosystem services, and the ecosystem services comes from plants and other parts of ecosystems, forests, biodiversity, grassland ecosystems, wetlands. So one thing is that, but second thing is that how nothing is unlimited. This we need to understand. So the resources are finite resources, and that is the reason basically what we are generating every day and saying this is a waste, है ना. सबके घर में एक बिन होती है जिसको हम कहते हैं डस्टबिन या वेस्ट बिन. ऑफिस में एक वेस्ट बिन होता है, कहीं पर भी सेग्रीगेटेड होता है, उसमें गीला कचरा, सूखा कचरा, वेट गार्बेज एंड रिसाइक्लेबल गार्बेज, इस तरीके से. बेसिकली हमको ये जल्दी से जल्दी खत्म करना पड़ेगा. वी हैव टू स्टॉप and we have to recognize that there is no waste actually. All these are resources, and we are entering in a transition where there is nothing called waste. Now everything is a resource. It is our failure to understand it is a resource. So कितनी जल्दी हम इस चीज को समझ करके अपनाना शुरू करें. So everything should be 100% recycling, 100% reuse. There should not be any waste. So this is point number 2. And third point is that the implications of climate change are becoming so notorious. So notorious. Even if we have projections, there are huge uncertainties. And these uncertainties are also brought out by the non-climatic actors. These are anthropogenic dimensions, for example, landscape and land uses. So that is also contributing. So we have to, and the final message that we have to rework urgently the entire approach of our developmental models. The current model of development will not work at all. So our पुराना मॉडल भी नहीं काम करेगा. अभी सिंगल स्टोरी बिल्डिंग की बात नहीं कर सकते हम सिर्फ मल्टी स्टोरीड बिल्डिंग की बात नहीं कर सकते. सो वी हैव टू थिंक ऑफ ए ब्लेंडेड अप्रोच, जहां पे हम ग्रीन बिल्डिंग की बात करें, जहां पे हम ग्रीन रूफ की बात करें. So how can we do the green building? But green building does not means कि बहुत सारा ग्लास लगा दिया आपने और उसमें से खूब धूप आ रही है, खूब गर्म हो रहा है. Then you have to put in lot of energy for cooling. So we have to have a localized model of green building. दिल्ली के लिए, कोलकाता के लिए, बॉम्बे के लिए, what kind of green building will suit? हमको मेक्सिको का, शिकागो का मॉडल नहीं लेना चाहिए, आंख बंद करके नहीं लेना चाहिए. तो बेसिकली दिस इज ऑल्सो लर्निंग दैट वी शुड हैव आवर ओन मॉडल ऑफ ग्रीन डेवलपमेंट, ग्रीन इकोनॉमी एंड ग्रीन रिसोर्स मैनेजमेंट. एंड जितना जल्दी से जल्दी हम कर पाए वो बहुत जरूरी है, अदरवाइज इट विल बी टू लेट. सो वंस अगेन माय कॉम्प्लीमेंट्स ऑन द वर्ल्ड एनवायरनमेंट डे. और इसमें हमको काफी रिसर्च की भी जरूरत है. अवर रिसर्च स्कॉलर्स, फैकल्टी मेंबर्स, साइंटिस्ट कलीग्स, पॉलिसी मेकर्स, बेसिकली हमको सोचना है कि कैसे हम इस रिसोर्स मैनेजमेंट को सिर्फ बात तक नहीं प्रैक्टिकली कर पाएंगे. दैट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. सो थैंक यू. ओवर टू यू.
Thank you so much for your inspiring and engaging talk, sir. I would like to invite Bhargavi ma'am for her remarks. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank Professor Anil K. Gupta for walking us through this entire disaster management, not just the act, but also the many steps that are being taken at all levels, the many collaborations, which is so important, the different kinds of plans that need to happen at the district and city levels. And he also spoke about vulnerability of certain communities, and I think that is where the planning has to start. More of these plans have to be ground up, because what is currently happening is the plans are all top down and they are heavy with technology, and that may not be suitable and actionable when disaster strikes. And the pandemic has definitely taught us something, and that is working at the local level. All of you certainly remember that it was your neighbors who brought you food. It was your neighbors who tried to find a hospital bed for you. It was your neighbors who got you medicine. So that is proof that, things have to start at the local level. And that is where I would again go back to the 73rd and the 74th Amendment, where all these plans need to converge at the ward level eventually, where they can be actionable. Otherwise, we can have hundreds of all these departments and agencies and cells, but at the local level. And sir also spoke about information that needs to be present at the local level. So tomorrow, if flood hits me, I should know who to call, where to go, which is the nearest relief center, where I can access healthcare. And for the poorer communities, simple things like water, food, again, healthcare and mobility. We've seen in Bangalore how, when it was flooded, even the high-end apartments were completely affected, just as the poorer communities. The luxury cars were all floating in water, and they also did not have access to food and water and mobility, right? So at the local level, we need to make information accessible, and at the local level, we need to raise awareness about all these legal provisions and the many departments that are doing commendable jobs today to make sure that we make our cities ready for risks, and we come out stronger and more resilient. So on that note, thank you so much, sir, for that very enlightening talk.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, both Bhargavi ma'am and Professor Anil. With this, we would like to move on with the next and last session for the day. So for our final session, I would like to invite Mr. Himanshu Shekhar ji, Senior Editor, Political and Current Affairs at New Delhi Television Limited, NDTV India, New Delhi. On the occasion of World Environment Day, sir will be guiding us on the topic Environment Action Advocacy. We welcome you, sir. The floor is all yours. Everyone, please bear with us a few more minutes. Sir is trying to join the meeting. Thank you.
दूध जाते हमारा करने करा तुम्हें चैनल पे भी दे इस तरह के दे
बैंक से कर्ज लिया था?
कर्ज लाओ हमने।
कितना?
3 लाख रुपया है।
3 लाख के करीब। तो जब कमाई नहीं हो रही है फसल से, तो
फसल में से नहीं हो रहा, दे नहीं पा रहा उनको, कुछ नहीं कर पा रहा कागज को, खा भी नाज नहीं हो रहा, परेशान है।
गुलाब अपने खेत में कुएं की खुदाई पिछले 3 साल से करा रहे हैं। 3 लाख से ज्यादा का खर्च कर चुके हैं, लेकिन अब भी अपने खेतों के लिए सिंचाई के लिए पानी कुएं से नहीं निकाल पाए हैं। करीब 7 साल पहले झांसी जिले के इस अमरपुर गांव में मैं अपने सहयोगी विनोद गौतम के साथ यहां पहुंचा था। यहां पर हम एक ग्राउंड रिपोर्ट उस वक्त शूट करने की तैयारी कर रहे थे कि यहां पर जो पानी का संकट है उससे किसान कैसे जूझ रहे हैं, और हमने देखा था कि उस वक्त एक बड़ा कुआं जो है वो यहां पर खोदा जा रहा था, बिल्कुल इसी जगह पर 7 साल पहले। आज हमें गुलाब और जगभान दोनों मिले हैं, जिन किसानों का मैंने 7 साल पहले इंटरव्यू किया था। और गुलाब उस वक्त यहाँ पर कुएं की खुदाई करवा रहे थे। ये आपकी खेत है?
हाँ
जी, आपकी खेत है।
हाँ।
आपको याद है एनडीटीवी की टीम आई थी आपके पास?
हाँ, तुमने चैनल पे भी दे दी, कम दी थी। हाँ, बताई थी झांसी में दूध जाते हमारा करने करा तुम्हें चैनल पे भी दे इस तरह के दे दी फिर बस। हाँ।
तो उस वक्त कितनी खुदाई हुई थी?
उस वक्त तो बहुत खुदाई करी थी, 20 फुट करी थी।
20 फीट हो चुका था।
हाँ।
और हमने देखा था बहुत सारे वर्कर थे जो यहाँ काम कर रहे थे उस वक्त।
लेबर भी थे, मजदूर लोग थे, हम भी लगे रहते, लगा रहते।
और उस वक्त आपको पानी नहीं मिल पाया था? ये
उसी
वक्त हमने रिपोर्ट किया था।
जो भी पत्थर रखा उसी वक्त का देखो
जी।
हाँ, पसीने निकाल दें।
और अब हम उस स्पॉट पर पहुंचे हैं जहां पर कुएं की खुदाई 7 साल पहले गुलाब ने की थी। बहुत सारे वर्कर्स यहाँ पर थे। आज इस जगह पर कुछ अवशेष ज़रूर मौजूद हैं, लेकिन ये पत्थर आपने उस वक्त निकाले थे अंदर से? हाँ, उसी वक्त का पत्थर है ये, और आपने इस पत्थर को निकाला था वहाँ से। हाँ। और अब कुएं की क्या हालत है, आप एक बार दिखाइए। इधर से आए पवन। तो आपने जो ये पैसे खर्च किए थे इतना, उसमें सफलता नहीं मिली?
नहीं, बहुत पैसा खर्च हो गया।
हाँ,
सारा बहुत कर्जा हो गया था। कहूँ कशु कर गए, कहूँ मजबूरी कर गए, कहूँ कशु कर गए, जिसका लिया तब जैसे दे पास सारा बैंक का भी नहीं दे पाया।
कुछ नहीं है। ये तो काफी गहरा है।
हाँ?
हाँ? हाँ? उस वक्त भी काफी आप खुदाई कर चुके थे, और
तब से तो बहुत ज्यादा हुआ।
खुदाई काफी हो चुकी है। हाँ? 70 फीट तक हो चुकी खुदाई यहाँ पे।
65-70 फुट न हो।
अभी भी कोई पानी नहीं दिख रहा नीचे?
नहीं, एक जगह थोड़ा सा
यहाँ पानी नहीं है। तो क्या यहाँ जो भूजल का स्तर है वो काफी नीचे चला गया है?
नीचे है।
हाँ?
बहुत नीचे चला गया।
बहुत नीचे चला गया है। तो इतनी मेहनत करने के बाद, करीब 70 फुट की खुदाई के बाद भी यहाँ पर झांसी जिले के इस अमरपुर गांव में, जो करीब 30 किलोमीटर दूर है झांसी शहर से, वहाँ पर अभी भी पानी जो है वो किसान गुलाब को नहीं मिल पाया। मेरे साथ विनोद हैं उस वक्त, जिन्होंने कैमरा वर्क किया था, उस इंटरव्यू को रिकॉर्ड किया था। विनोद, इस इलाके में ये जो तस्वीर है, काफ़ी मेहनत की थी उस वक्त। मुझे याद है गुलाब ने कहा था करीब 3 साल तक हम खुदाई कर रहे हैं, लेकिन सफलता नहीं मिली। क्या यहाँ भूजल बहुत नीचे चला गया?
सर, ऐसा है कि जब गर्मी आती है, यहाँ जब 40 और 45 डिग्री टेम्परेचर जाता है, तो यहाँ क्या पथरीला इलाका है, उसमें जो खुदाई करते हैं तो उसमें पानी निकलता है। जब वो गर्मी पड़ती है तो उसका जलस्तर नीचे चला जाता है। जब जलस्तर नीचे चला जाता है, कुएं सूख जाते हैं, और ये कुएं केवल बारिश के पानी से भरते हैं। इनको कुएं को भरने के लिए कोई ऐसा नेचुरल सोर्स नहीं है कि ये नेचुरल सोर्स हो जिससे ये जमीन से ये कुएं भरते रहें। अन्य कुओं में अगर आप देखेंगे अन्य जगह, तो जमीन से नेचुरल मतलब पानी आ जाता है, लेकिन ये पथरीला आप देख सकते हैं कि पथरीला ये इलाका है, तो पत्थर, ये पूरा पत्थर है, तो ये पत्थर के कारण इसमें सूखा पड़ जाता है, और ये जब गर्मी आती है तो ये सूख जाता है, और बारिश के पानी जब ये भरता है तो ये अपने उससे खेतों की सिंचाई करते हैं, पीने का पानी भी उसके लिए अपना यूज कर लेते हैं।
भूजल का स्तर तो ये तय है कि
वो हर गर्मी में सर ये भूजल का स्तर गिरता है यहाँ का।
मेरे साथ जगभान भी हैं, दूसरे किसान जिनकी पास की ये जमीन है। मुझे याद है आपने कहा था मेरे पास 4 एकड़ जमीन है।
4 एकड़ है हमारे
4 एकड़ जमीन है। आपने कहा था एक नहर बनना चाहिए यहाँ पर। 7 साल में क्या कुछ बदला है यहाँ?
नहीं, कोई नहर में नहीं, कोई बदलाव नहीं आओ।
तो पानी का संकट वैसे ही बना हुआ है।
बिजनेस से पहले तो स्वाब है।
तो हमने आपका कहाँ पर इंटरव्यू किया था, दिखाइए। ये आपका खेत है, इसके पीछे वाला यही खेत है। तो उसके बाद से यहाँ पर कुछ बदलाव आया है खेती करने में?
खेती करने में कुछ नहीं जाओ,
यही वही चुनौती है और संकट है।
हाँ संकट है ये, बस पानी वानी नहीं होता कैसे फसल,
पानी के स्रोत नहीं है इसलिए खेती करना मुश्किल होगा।
वर्षा भी कम हो जाए तो कम कम से और बिल्कुल नहीं रहती, खेती होते नहीं, जो कोई नहीं है काम पिछले का खेती नहीं कोई नहर होते है नहीं, कोई ट्यूबवेल है नहीं, बस ये पत्थर है सब पूरे में। बदलाव तो जब जो है तो सो आज ज़्यादा ही और होगा, माने परेशानी ही बढ़ गई
जी। तो जगमान यहाँ पर इस बार चुनाव होने वाले हैं आपके इलाके में, एक बार फिर आपके जैसे जो किसान हैं उनकी क्या उम्मीदें हैं यहाँ पर इस बार?
जो किसान है कि जमीन कहीं तो करने कर गई बीड़ा में,
हाँ
बीड़ा में कर गई भस्ती जमीन, अब जो कछु बची है सो ये ऐसे भुग देंगे।
अच्छा, तो यहाँ पर एक नया टाउनशिप बनने वाला है। हाँ।
बीड़ा ये आसपास की जमीन सब चली गई, ये जमीन बच गई,
ये बच गई है
जहाँ में मकान।
पर इस गांव की कितनी जमीन ली गई है?
इस गांव की 1250 एकड़ निकल गई,
1250 एकड़ जमीन ली गई है इस गांव की।
हाँ,
एक नया इंडस्ट्रियल टाउनशिप बनना है यहाँ पर। यूपी सरकार ने इस पूरे इलाके में झांसी जिले में नोएडा के तर्ज पर एक नया इंडस्ट्रियल टाउनशिप बीडा बनाने का फैसला किया है और इसके तहत जिन 33 गांव की करीब 14,000 हेक्टेयर जमीन ली गई है उसमें से एक गांव अमरपुर भी है। जो मुआवजा मिला है आप लोगों को उसके लिए?
अगर कोई मामला
नहीं मिला,
अभी नहीं मिला है,
लेकिन
मिलना है।
थोड़ा मामला जा रहा है, उससे जमीन भी कितना नहीं कर पा हाल ना पैसा मिल रहा ना कचू रस्टी हो गई, लेकिन और गाँव की
अब वो चल रहा है, अभी अधिग्रहण की प्रक्रिया चल रही है।
हाँ जगह में तो नहीं हुई, लेकिन हो रही माना कागज
जी। तो ये एक कोशिश है विनोद इस इलाके को फिर से विकसित करने की, एक नया औद्योगिक शहर बनाकर।
जी औद्योगिक जब होगा इलाका जब औद्योगिक होगा तो वास्तव में बुंदेलखंड में कहीं ना कहीं लोगों के लिए रोजगार पैदा होगा, लोगों के लिए कि जीवन शैली में सुधार भी आएगा। लेकिन इन किसानों का ये कहना है कि हमें जो मुआवजा है वो हमारे अनुसार नहीं मिल रहा है, उस सर्किल रेट के अनुसार नहीं मिल रहा है। और सरकार ने भी जैसा कि मतलब सूत्रों की अगर माने तो सरकार का कहना ये था कि हमने उसका इसलिए सर्किल रेट नहीं बढ़ाया था क्योंकि हमको ये ज़मीन एडॉप्ट करनी थी। ये बड़ा कारण जो किसानों के लिए वो ये है कि हमारी ज़मीन हमारे मन मुताबिक रेट नहीं मिल रहे हैं, जिस वजह से उनमें असंतोष है।
लेकिन एक बदलाव ज़रूर होता दिख रहा है इस इलाके में। झांसी से करीब 30 किलोमीटर दूर अमरपुर गांव से मेरे सहयोगी विनोद गौतम और पवन कुमार के साथ हिमांशु शेखर, एनडीटीवी इंडिया।
संकट पीने के पानी से लेकर सिंचाई के लिए जरूरी पानी के संसाधनों की कमी की वजह से है। इस बार झांसी संसदीय क्षेत्र में राजनीतिक सरगर्मियां तेज हो रही हैं और यहां चुनावी अभियान में पानी एक अहम चुनावी मुद्दा बन गया है। देखिए हिमांशु शेखर की ग्राउंड रिपोर्ट।
फरवरी 2017 में एनडीटीवी की टीम जब झांसी के अमरपुर गांव पहुंची थी तो पानी के संकट से जूझ रहे किसान गुलाब बैंक से लोन लेकर कुआं खोद रहे थे। ये काम वो 2014 से लगातार कर रहे थे, लेकिन 3 साल की खुदाई के बाद भी पानी नहीं निकला था। झांसी स्थित एनडीटीवी के पत्रकार विनोद गौतम ने 7 साल पहले मेरे साथ इन तस्वीरों को रिकॉर्ड किया था। करीब 7 साल पहले झांसी जिले के इस अमरपुर गांव में मैं अपने सहयोगी विनोद गौतम के साथ यहां पहुंचा था। उस वक्त एक बड़ा कुआं जो है वो यहां पर खोदा जा रहा था, बिल्कुल इसी जगह पर 7 साल पहले। और गुलाब उस वक्त यहां पर कुएं की खुदाई करवा रहे थे। ये आपकी खेत है?
हाँ
जी आपकी खेत है।
हाँ।
आपको याद है एनडीटीवी की टीम आई थी आपके पास?
आई।
उस वक्त कितनी खुदाई हुई थी?
उस वक्त तो बहुत खुदाई करी थी, 20 फुट करी थी।
ये तो काफी गहरा है। हाँ? उस वक्त भी काफी आप खुदाई कर चुके थे और
तब से तो बहुत ज्यादा होगा,
खुदाई काफी हो चुकी है। हाँ? 70 फीट तक हो चुकी खुदाई।
65-70 फुट न होगा।
अभी भी कोई पानी नहीं दिख रहा नीचे। करीब 70 फुट की खुदाई के बाद भी यहाँ पर झांसी जिले के इस अमरपुर गांव में, जो करीब 30 किलोमीटर दूर है झांसी शहर से, वहां पर अभी भी पानी जो है वो किसान गुलाब को नहीं मिल पाया। मेरे साथ विनोद हैं। क्या यहाँ भूजल बहुत नीचे चला गया है?
सर ऐसा है कि जब गर्मी आती है यहाँ, जब 40 और 45 डिग्री टेम्परेचर जाता है, तो यहाँ क्या पथरीला इलाका है। उसमें जो खुदाई करते हैं तो उसमें पानी निकलता है। जब वो गर्मी पड़ती है तो उसका जलस्तर नीचे चला जाता है। जब जलस्तर नीचे चला जाता है, कुएं सूख जाते हैं और ये कुएं केवल बारिश के पानी से भरते हैं।
मेरे साथ जगभान भी हैं, दूसरे किसान जिनके पास की ये जमीन है। मुझे याद है आपने कहा था मेरे पास 4 एकड़ जमीन है।
4 एकड़ है हमारे
4 एकड़ जमीन है। आपने कहा था एक नहर बनना चाहिए यहाँ पर। 7 साल में क्या कुछ बदला है यहाँ?
नहीं, कोई नहर में नहीं, कोई बदलाव नहीं आओ।
तो पानी का संकट वैसे ही बना हुआ है।
बिजनेस से पहले तो सब है।
यहाँ से कुछ ही किलोमीटर दूर कुछ महिलाएं हेब्डा गांव में हैंडपंप पर कपड़े धो रही हैं। कहती हैं उनके मोहल्ले में ये इकलौता हैंडपंप है जो काम कर रहा है। इस हैंडपंप से कितने परिवार का खर्चा चलता है पानी?
पूरे परिवार का खर्चा चलता है।
कितने घर हैं यहाँ पे?
50-60 तो बता रहे हैं हम।
50-60 घर हैं यहाँ पे।
50-60 नहीं।
तो और कोई जरिया नहीं है पानी का?
नहीं, गेल का गेला रहता है, वो भी पीता है। हाँ, वो भी पीता है गेलिया रात।
कौन गेलिया मतलब?
गेल से आदमी निकलते हैं।
अच्छा, जानवर भी पीते हैं इसी से पानी?
पीते हैं।
ओके, तो इसी का पानी आप पीते भी हैं, फिर नहाते हैं, कपड़े भी साफ करते हैं?
सब करते हैं, सब करते हैं, नहाते हैं, पीते
पर ये समस्या कब से है आपके गांव में?
जिंदगी यही की है।
यहाँ पर करीब 50 से 60 घर हैं, परिवार हैं जो पूरी तरह से इस हैंडपंप पर निर्भर हैं। इस गांव में पानी की कमी की वजह से खेती पर बुरा असर पड़ रहा है। कुएं के पानी से सिंचाई कर जो थोड़ी बहुत फसल उगती है उसे भी अक्सर आवारा पशु चर कर जाते हैं। झांसी के बबीना ब्लॉक के इस हेप्ता गांव में एक बड़ी समस्या जो है वो आवारा पशुओं को लेकर है, जो अक्सर यहाँ पर जो फसल होती है उसको चर जाते हैं, नुकसान होता है यहाँ के लोगों को। यहाँ कितने आवारा पशु होंगे आपके गांव में?
कम से कम 150 नहीं, 150।
ये इससे नुकसान हो जाता है आपके?
बहुत नुकसान। हमने फसल बहुत मुश्किल से रखा, आधी फसल तो खा गए।
हाँ,
आधी फसल तो खा गए जानवर
जी।
हाँ, देखो ये तो सारी।
इनका रोकथाम नहीं होता है?
नहीं,
कोई व्यवस्था नहीं है सर।
अच्छा,
इसका हम ये चाहते हैं जो भी यहाँ से सांसद बने और हमारे गांव में गौशाला की व्यवस्था करवाई जाए। कभी 300 नंग, कभी 200 नंग, ऐसे जब रबी और खरीफ की फसल होती है तब बहुत परेशान रहते हैं
जी।
चर जाता है सारा, घर पे रहें कि वहाँ रखाएं, मतलब समझ में नहीं आता है।
कई बार आप लोगों को यहाँ पर रात में जगना भी पड़ता है?
रात भर जगते हैं।
बुंदेलखंड में गर्मी तेजी से बढ़ रही है और यहाँ की बड़ी नदियाँ और जलाशय सूखते जा रहे हैं। बुंदेलखंड का इलाका देश के सबसे पिछड़े इलाकों में गिना जाता है और यहाँ पर विशेष तौर पर गर्मी के सीजन के दौरान पानी का जो संकट है उससे किसानों को और आम लोगों को जूझना पड़ता है। विनोद, ये बेतवा नदी है, अभी मई का महीना है और अभी ये आधी सूख चुकी है।
ये जब गर्मी पड़ती है, जब भीषण गर्मी है, अभी तो ये कम सूखी हुई है। जब गर्मी और पड़ेगी, जब मई का लास्ट होगा, जून की शुरुआत होगी, तो ये नदी और सूख जाएगी। ये चूंकि यहाँ से इस नदी के माध्यम से आप बुंदेलखंड के अधिकतर इलाकों में सिंचाई के लिए पानी जाता है।
पानी का ये संकट झांसी और बुंदेलखंड में एक अहम चुनावी मुद्दा बन गया है। पानी की किल्लत सिर्फ गांव तक सीमित नहीं है, पानी संकट की गूंज झांसी और बुंदेलखंड के दूसरे बड़े शहरों में भी सुनाई देती है। बीजेपी, कांग्रेस और बसपा समेत हर दल पानी को लेकर वादे कर रहा है।
प्रधानमंत्री ने बुंदेलखंड को सबसे बड़ी सौगात दी, वो है 2 नदियों को जोड़ने की, केन और बेतवा नदी, जिसकी वजह से जब वो कंप्लीट हो जाए
A look at the climate change impact on wheat yield. The abnormal changes in weather are scaring farmers, and after the heat wave in April, farmers are now fearful of what lies ahead during the forthcoming Kharif season. Here's a report.
Wheat farmer Mahendra Singh is getting increasingly tense as climate change has begun to seriously impact farming in his village. He had sown wheat in his 1-acre farmland in the Gadana village of UP's Modi Nagar during the Rabi season this year. The unseasonal rain and hailstorm in March destroyed almost half of his wheat crop. The abnormal changes in weather have begun to scare him. After the heat wave in April, he is now fearful of what lies ahead during the forthcoming Kharif season. The Met Department has forecast a normal monsoon, but he says only God can save farmers.
In many parts of western Uttar Pradesh, the above normal temperature in February had a bad impact on wheat crops. And then the unseasonal rain and hailstorm in the month of March destroyed wheat crops in many parts. Mahendra Singh lost
A look at the climate change impact on wheat yield.
destroyed wheat crops in many parts. Mahendra Singh lost
रिसर्च इंस्टीट्यूट के निदेशक और कृषि वैज्ञानिक अशोक कुमार सिंह ने कहा कि 1920 से लेकर 2010 के बीच तापमान के औसत ट्रेंड के हिसाब से साल 2030 तक गेहूं उगाने के सीजन के दौरान तापमान में 1 डिग्री सेल्सियस तक की बढ़ोतरी हो सकती है। उन्होंने कहा कि अगर तापमान 1 डिग्री सेल्सियस तक बढ़ता है तो इससे गेहूं की पैदावार में 5% तक की कमी होगी। अशोक कुमार सिंह ने यह भी कहा कि अगर किसानों ने इस दौरान जलवायु अनुकूलन तकनीक अपनाई तो गेहूं की पैदावार 10 से 15% तक बढ़ सकती है। अशोक कुमार सिंह से एक्सक्लूसिव बातचीत की हमारे सहयोगी हिमांशु शेखर मिश्रा ने।
जलवायु परिवर्तन का भारतीय कृषि क्षेत्र पर क्या असर पड़ रहा है, इस पर बात करने के लिए मेरे साथ हैं इंडियन एग्रीकल्चरल रिसर्च इंस्टीट्यूट के डायरेक्टर अशोक कुमार सिंह। वैज्ञानिकों का क्या एस्टिमेशन है, अगर मान लीजिए आने वाले दशकों में 1 डिग्री सेल्सियस औसतन इंक्रीज होता है तापमान में, तो इससे गेहूं की पैदावार पर भारत में कितना असर पड़ेगा?
देखिए, इस विषय पर हमारे संस्थान में विस्तार में शोध कार्य किया जा रहा है। सन 1990 से लेकर के 2010 तक गेहूं उगाने के समय में जो तापक्रम में वेरिएशन आया है, उसके अंदर जो औसत परिवर्तन आया है, उसको अगर हम आधार माने तो ऐसा माना जाता है कि करीब 2040 तक तापक्रम में गेहूं उगाने के समय के दौरान करीब 1 डिग्री सेल्सियस की बढ़ोतरी होगी। और अगर ऐसा होता है तो अनुमान के अनुसार जो हमारी पैदावार है उसमें 5% के आसपास कमी होगी। अब सवाल यह है कि बहुत सारी ऐसी कृषि पद्धतियां हैं जिनका हम प्रयोग करें तो ये 5% जो अनुमानित कमी है उसको पूरा करते हुए हम 10% और पैदावार बढ़ा सकते हैं। जैसे अभी हम जो है क्लाइमेट रेजिलिएंट वैरायटीज़ के डेवलपमेंट के ऊपर काम कर रहे हैं। बहुत सारी ऐसी गेहूं की किस्में जिनमें उच्चतम तापक्रम में पैदावार की कमी नहीं होती है, सूखा रोधी क्षमता होती है। उसी तरह से हमारी सिंचाई की क्षमता को हम बेहतर कर सकते हैं। जो हमारे पोषक तत्व हैं उनकी जो उपलब्धता है फसलों को, जैसे हम नाइट्रोजन की बात करें तो 30-35% के आसपास होती है, इसको बढ़ा करके हम 45 से 50-60% तक ले जा सकते हैं। और अमृतकाल के पीरियड के लिए 2047 तक अलग अलग लक्ष्य क्या रखे गए हैं, नाइट्रोजन यूज इफिशियंसी कितनी बढ़ानी है, इरिगेशन यूज इफिशियंसी कितनी बढ़ानी है, ये सारे लक्ष्य परिषद की तरफ से निर्धारित किए गए हैं और उन पर हम काम कर रहे हैं। और जिसके वजह से मुझे पूरा विश्वास है कि अगर परिवर्तन होता भी है तो भी हमारे पैदावार में कोई कमी नहीं आएगी, बल्कि हम पैदावार को बढ़ा सकते हैं।
एक आखिरी सवाल, अब पिछले एक दशक में क्या ट्रेंड रहा है जहाँ तक गेहूं के पैदावार का सवाल है? हमने देखा वेरिएशंस हैं। पिछले साल 107 मिलियन टन के आसपास पैदावार हुई। इस साल आपने कहा सेकंड एस्टीमेट में 112 मिलियन टन का अनुमान है। पिछले 10 साल का क्या ट्रेंड रहा है गेहूं का?
देखिए, लगातार देखिए तो हम जो है गेहूं के उत्पादन में निरंतर वृद्धि होती रही है। पिछले वर्ष जरूर कमी आई थी, क्योंकि मार्च के महीने में 25, 26, 27, 28 मार्च ये तारीख थी जो बड़ा क्रूशियल तारीख थी। उसमें तापक्रम काफ़ी तेज हुआ था, बढ़ा था, और उसके वजह से दाने सिकुड़ गए थे, दाने अच्छी तरह से भरे नहीं थे। तो उसमें पैदावार घट करके हमारी राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर 105-106 मिलियन टन के आसपास हो गई थी। लेकिन इस बार फसल गिरने के बावजूद भी चूंकि तापक्रम अनुकूल रहा तो पैदावार में कोई कमी नहीं आई है और अनुमानित पैदावार करीब 112 मिलियन टन के आसपास है। और बाकी पीछे वर्षों की जो बात कर रहे थे, हमेशा पैदावार में वृद्धि हुई है और इसमें योगदान है नई नई किस्में जो आ रही हैं, नई टेक्नोलॉजी आ रही है, उसका बहुत बड़ा योगदान है।
हमसे बात करने के लिए बहुत शुक्रिया। दिल्ली से सचिन गुप्ता के साथ हिमांशु शेखर, NDTV इंडिया।
बढ़ रही है और ये चेतावनी जल संसाधन मामलों पर संसदीय समिति ने संसद में पेश अपनी ताजा रिपोर्ट में दी है। इसमें 7 फरवरी 2021 की चमोली आपदा का हवाला देते हुए संसदीय समिति ने एनडीआरएफ के लिए एक एयर फ्लीट तैयार करने की सिफारिश की है, जिससे कि राहत बचाव के लिए एनडीआरएफ के जवानों को आपदा स्थल पर जल्दी से जल्दी पहुंचाया जा सके।
चलो
7 फरवरी 2021 को चमोली में ग्लेशियर टूटने से जो अचानक बाढ़ आई थी, उसमें बचाव के लिए एनडीआरएफ की टीम को पहुंचने में काफी वक्त लगा। यही नहीं, चमोली जैसी आपदा से निपटने के लिए एनडीआरएफ के पास मलबा हटाने वाले आधुनिक उपकरण तक नहीं हैं। ये राय उस रिपोर्ट की है जो जल संसाधन मामलों पर संसद की स्थायी समिति ने बुधवार को संसद में पेश की है। फरवरी 2021 के चमोली डिजास्टर का हवाला देते हुए संसदीय समिति ने संसद में पेश अपनी रिपोर्ट में कहा है कि एनडीआरएफ के पास अपना एक अलग एयर फ्लीट होना चाहिए, जिससे कि देश के किसी भी हिस्से में अगर डिजास्टर होता है तो राहत और बचाव के काम को जल्दी शुरू करने के लिए एनडीआरएफ के जवानों को वहां जल्दी से जल्दी पहुंचाया जा सके। फिलहाल एनडीआरएफ को डिजास्टर साइट पर पहुंचने के लिए इंडियन एयरफोर्स की तरफ से मुहैया कराए जाने वाले एयरक्राफ्ट या फिर राज्य सरकारों की तरफ से मुहैया कराए जाने वाले चॉपर्स पर निर्भर रहना पड़ता है।
एनडीआरएफ में हमेशा एक डेडिकेटेड एयरविंग की आवश्यकता महसूस की गई थी। मुझे याद है 2014 में जब श्रीनगर का फ्लड आया था, उस समय ये बातें बहुत ताज़ा थी कि 2013 के केदारनाथ ट्रेजेडी में एनडीआरएफ की टुकड़ी समय से इसलिए नहीं पहुंच पाई क्योंकि उनके पास कोई एयरक्राफ्ट नहीं था, कोई वहां जाने का साधन नहीं था। 2014 में, 2015 में, 2016 में हम लोगों ने महसूस किया और यही कारण था कि एज डीजी एनडीआरएफ मैंने ये अनुरोध किया था भारत सरकार से कि एनडीआरएफ को एक डेडिकेटेड एयरविंग होने की आवश्यकता है, क्योंकि अगर एयरविंग होता, उसके पास एक डेडिकेटेड एयर पैसेज होता, तो संभवतः एनडीआरएफ की टुकड़ियां समय से तत्काल प्रभाव से उस स्थान पर पहुंच पाती जहां ये डिजास्टर हुआ। मुझे खुशी है कि इस प्रकार की अब बात चल रही है कि एनडीआरएफ को एक डेडिकेटेड एयरविंग दिया जाए ताकि उसकी टुकड़ियां प्रोएक्टिवली होकर और प्री पोजिशन्ड होकर या डिजास्टर होने पर तत्काल वहां पहुंच सके।
संसदीय समिति ने आगाह किया है कि हिमालयी क्षेत्र में जलवायु परिवर्तन के असर से हाल के वर्षों में हिम नदियों के पिघलने की रफ्तार बढ़ी है। रिपोर्ट में कहा गया है कि हिमालय काराकोरम क्षेत्र
Good evening, everybody. Mr. Himanshu has finally joined us. Sir, should I start?
Yeah, please do that. And I apologize. My mobile, I think just stopped. It got discharged, and it took me that 10 extra minutes because I've been just running in the morning. There's a government making process that is going on now.
No worries,
So
sir.
I think I have very limited time because there's another live broadcast at 5. So yeah, you can go ahead now.
Okay, sure, sir. For the final session, I would like to invite Mr. Himanshu Shekhar ji, Senior Editor at NDTV India, New Delhi. On the occasion of World Environment Day, sir will be guiding us on the topic of environment action advocacy. Welcome, sir. The floors are yours.
Yeah. Actually, I have been traveling very extensively to report on elections. And this is perhaps the first election in which I met farmers and other stakeholders who were very, very worried about climate change and the abnormal changes in India's weather. And for the first time, perhaps we heard not very extensively about the fact that climate change could also be an election issue. I say this on the basis of my ground reports from Bundelkhand, where I extensively traveled in villages and I did series of ground reports showing how the water crisis in Bundelkhand region of Uttar Pradesh actually has got aggravated because of abnormal changes in rainfall patterns and the water scarcity crisis, which has further deepened. In fact, there's one story, and I have shared that link with you, with Arjun sir, on the fact that I went to a village in Jhansi district where 7 years ago in February 2017, I had shot a ground report where a group of farmers were actually digging a well. They had taken a loan of 2 lakh rupees from the bank and they were digging a well. They had dug up to 60 feet, but there was still no water. So at that time, I had done a series of stories on the water crisis in Bundelkhand region. 7 years later, in the last week of May, in the second week of May, I again went to the same village, went to the same spot, and I interviewed the same set of farmers who were actually digging the well 7 years back. And I saw that the well was completely deserted. There were bushes that had grown around. And when I asked the farmers, they said that we tried to dig 10 more feet, but even after digging for 70 feet, the water table had actually gone so low in this area that they could not access water and they had to stop digging. So the entire money was wasted and still the water, they could not reach the water table even after digging for 70 feet. And on this surface, there are very, very limited resources of surface water in this region. And even in the second week of May, the temperature in different parts of Bundelkhand had reached 45, 46 degrees Celsius. And the biggest Betwa river in the region had only, I think, 15-20% of water left because the high temperature, as you know, was actually leading to a faster evaporation of water. And even the water left in reservoirs and rivers actually were drying up very fast. And all this has got further complicated because of changes in the rainfall pattern in this region. And their issues related with environmental crisis were at top of the mind election issues in the villages of Bundelkhand. I met people who had actually only one hand pump, which could be used by 200, 300 people in a village. And there was one village where 2 hand pumps were available for 400 people. And so they had to be completely dependent on drinking water or for cleaning utensils, cleaning clothes, taking bath, and also feeding water to the animals. And they were entirely dependent on these 2 hand pumps. And that's the story I saw in different parts of Bundelkhand, where the water table has gone down, the surface water resources are very limited, and the temperature is going up, and the rainfall patterns actually are becoming more and more abnormal in the sense that they are becoming very difficult to predict at what time the rainfall actually will happen. So the crisis of environment actually is leading to a deep social and economic crisis in Bundelkhand. And I did have shared my links with Arjun sir. I do have access to that.
Yes, sir. I believe we do. I think we can share it with the participants.
We played it already, sir.
The first few links can be.
We played it, sir, already.
Oh, you played it?
Yeah.
You must have seen. This is the story I saw in other districts of Uttar Pradesh as well. And this time, there was a lot of effort actually to bring issues related with environment and climate change into the election discourse. But in most of these states, this did not become an issue. But in case of Bundelkhand,
So you're muted.
Yesterday, the Prime Minister had a high-level meeting on World Environment Day. Today, he himself went to plant a sample, and we have seen Prime Minister actually work very seriously to address the challenges on environment front, on actually combating the disasters. And we also, within 24 hours at the end of the sensitization actually seems to be happening, and I just hope that it produces very good results. So,
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank
and
you
I'm
so
sorry,
much.
I apologize again for this disruption, because as you know, there's a government formation process which is going on, and I just don't know. I was just little unlucky today for 15 minutes that my phone took 15 minutes to actually start again. I'm very sorry for that.
No worries, sir. Thank you so much for your brief and comprehensive discussion. I would like to invite Bhargavi ma'am to give her remarks and any comments that she might have.
Can you give me a minute? I will
I'm not in a hurry.
come back.
Sure, ma'am.
I'm in a webinar. So sorry.
Oh, Kumar.
Kumar is not here.
When he comes, just tell him. Just want to identify.
Oh my God! Later.
I'm extremely sorry for that interruption, but thank you so much, Mr. Himanshu Shekharji. I think that was a big, a mind-opening, couple of videos that we saw from your work, and also listening to you to understand the ground realities of what is happening. Because while we hear that, the disaster management action is in place, there are lots of efforts happening at the district level, state level, city level, village level, and all that. But at the end of it, these plans and actions and programs sometimes, for various reasons, are not really helping the local people who are suffering on a day-to-day basis, particularly the last mile issue that we just saw, where people are threatened with just the simple thing of, the lack of water, lack of electricity. Imagine if we all had to depend on one hand pump to get our drinking water or water for anything else. given the context in a country like India where there are caste, class, religious issues, if we have to share one infrastructure such as a hand pump, you can also imagine who will have access to it, who will decide who will get it, who will decide who will not get it, and who will become subordinate, and their lives can be so much more indignified, just begging and asking around for people to get access to a simple thing like a hand pump. And that also brings me to the point to say that, on the other hand, we are also very proud to say that India is completely electrified. But we do know from the ground reporting like this, and from my own work, that there are many villages today that still lurk in darkness. While electricity pole may have reached a village, that doesn't mean all the homes in the village have access to electricity. So in such a context, addressing disasters at the local level is a huge challenge, and it requires a complete new reimagination with all the policies and everything in place. How is it that we as youth of today make sure that these policies and programs and schemes reach everybody, to make sure that nobody is left behind? And areas like Bundelkhand, for instance, and I can also speak from many examples in Karnataka where I come from, once there is no water, once people can't farm, obviously the youth migrate out. Consider yourselves being there. Would you want to live there and continue a life where getting 2 square meals a day is very challenging, right? So the youth obviously migrate out. It is most often the senior citizens and women and children, and as our earlier speaker also highlighted, it is eventually the women and children who bear the brunt of all of this. So this is something that really requires attention at a totally different level, and a lot of reimagination has to go in. And with all the technology that we have today, I think it is important to use technology in a very judicious and effective way to ensure that there are solutions that can be found to address these issues at the local level. In a country like India today, we also have hundreds of philanthropies looking at issues of farming, particularly the small and marginal farmers. The stories that we heard today are, stories of farmers who have just 1 acre of land, and they're dependent on that one crop, which fills their households with grain for an entire year. And if that one crop doesn't come, their food and nutritional security is the one that is hit very badly. And these are the very pockets where maternal mortality, infant mortality has continued to remain very challenging despite the big strides we have taken in other areas. So I think that was a great mind-blowing account of what is happening on ground, and the visuals and what we heard from Mr. Himanshu Shekhar has left us all pretty speechless, truly awakening us on a day like this. And that was a lot of food for thought on World Environment Day, because on World Environment Day, most of the places, people wake up to it, particularly the corporates and schools and other institutions, the bureaucratic institutions. They just wake up to it and they go around, and it begins and ends with planting a sapling and reading something or discussing something, and that's the end of it. But to be able to see videos like this, listen to the farming community, and today it is the farming community that is protesting, asking for very simple things, right? The very basic rights that they are asking today, and the fact that they continue to protest is a very awakening call to all of us to put everything that we are learning in this course into thinking and action, and convert all this knowledge to some kind of action as part of this fellowship. So thank you so much, Mr. Himanshu Shekhar, and I'm sure our participants will have some questions. So over to you, Preksha to take the questions.
Thank you so much, ma'am. If any participant does have a question, they can put it in the Q&A box, and we can, I think, forward it to Mr. Himanshu ji, as he said, like he has a online live webinar or broadcast to attend to. So if any questions are there, please put them in the Q&A box. Thank you. With the permission of the chair, I think we can move on to the vote of thanks for the day. Thank you, ma'am. As we come to the end of day 4 of EPAYF, Environment Policy and Action Youth Fellowship, an online international summer school program and a 2-month online immersive introductory leadership certificate training fellowship program, I, Preksha Jalan, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, would like to propose the formal vote of thanks on behalf of IMPRI, New Delhi. Sorry. We are grateful to our experts for the day 4 session, Ms. Tripta Mehra ji, Professor Anil K. Gupta ji, and Mr. Himanshu Shekhar ji, for taking out their valuable time and allowing us to learn from this online certificate program. We thank our chair, Ms. Bhargavi S. Rao ji, for convening all the sessions. We thank all of our participants who have raised pertinent questions and have actively participated in today's deliberations. We also look forward to welcoming you next Saturday on June 8th for our day 5 of the certification course. We are grateful if you are watching us later on YouTube, listening to us through our various podcasts, or are reading our publications. We hope you continue to join in future to our IMPRI Web Policy Talk and Web Policy Learning. Wishing you a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.